John's teammate, David Baddiel.
Hello.
David suffers from insomnia. Here's a tip, David. Try talking to John after the show for 5 minutes. That will sort you right out.
How not to? You're supposed to say something about him and his background and stuff.
He was saying that I had insomnia.
That's hardly a slam, is it?
I'll tell you, though, whenever you tell people you've got insomnia, they'll always say, oh, no, it's all right, because I'm always asleep as soon as I hit the pillow, right? And I always think...
8 hours a night, every night.
I always think, you know, if I said, oh, I was blind, you wouldn't say, oh, really, because I can see perfectly.
David's just released his first children's book, The Parent Agency, about a 9-year-old who wants to swap his parents for more interesting people. Apparently, David got the idea from his 9-year-old.
No, that's true. I did. But I got a review for that kid's book on a kid's site, right? And a kid said, this is the best book I've ever read in my life. And I thought, well, that sounds good, but he was 9. So it's a really short life, isn't it? That's like an assessment based on very limited experience. It's like Nigel Farage saying that's the best reggae I've ever heard, isn't it?
I would say as well, if you've been on children's forums checking reviews for your book, just in general, I would delete your internet history.
David's latest book won an award for Best Laugh Out Loud Book for 9 to 13-year-olds. I mean, it was aimed at adults, but still. David, you've got 2 kids. What kind of a parent are you?
I'm all right. I brought along a picture of my daughter, Dolly. That's her a few years ago wearing her lovely, cute panda hat. And it's an interesting thing, actually, because people, when they're on the telly, they don't normally bring along pictures of their kids because they think, like, the press might get hold of it, that represents some kind of intrusion. But I'm more worried the press might get hold of some pictures of me doing some bad parenting. For example, forcing Dolly to pull her lovely, cute panda hat over her face and then adjusting her hair so that she looks like Hitler.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that's
parenting.
Questionable in any household. In a Jewish household, it's really
Yeah. Well, that's part of the thrill of it, really, for me. It is weird sometimes being a bit well-known. Like, when she was 3, she used to call me Daddy, obviously, but she would also sometimes hear people calling me David. So sometimes she'd call me David. And then once, I was taking her for a walk in the park, and she had to go for a wee. I went into the men's toilet. I sort of pushed past all these men who were in there, got her into the cubicle. That's the moment she chose to go, David Baddiel. And I could feel all the men outside thinking, that's not her father.
David, you've performed stand-up comedy at Wembley Arena. I believe you were the first comedian ever to perform at Wembley Arena. How was that?
It was good, although people say that Sean Locke was the first comedian to perform at Wembley Arena.
Well, I believe he was, because he was your support act.
No,
so technically, Sean was the...
No, you weren't. This is a comedy myth. That Sean was our support, but he was in sketches, so he actually didn't come on till about the middle of the show. But people just think it's true
Well,
now.
let me just double-check with Sean. Sean, is that true that you were the first?
Yes, I was first, yeah. What I liked about the story was that there's some journalists concocted it and it was fed back to me. Said, you were the first, and it's quite a good bit of publicity, so I just went, yeah. So I went along with it for years.
Yeah.
And then it became the truth. Yeah. That's how history's written.
It's like people just think it's true, like it's the idea like that actually is your hair colour.
Dave's hair is like before and yours is after. Just for men.
Dave, have you got a mascot today?
Yeah, I have got a mascot today, and here it is. It's me. Actually, well, I should say that in case anyone's turned on Channel 4 and they think this is Embarrassing Bodies and this is my grotesque conjoined twin. It isn't. It's a spitting image puppet of me, and I brought it because I thought it would bring me good luck because it's basically me from the 90s when I was more successful. That's a good idea.
The fact that you own that doesn't speak well of you.
I don't own it. I don't own it. It was bought by a bloke I don't know for 20 grand at an auction, and to be honest, for 20 grand he could have bought me.
David, did you bring a mascot this evening?
I did, actually. This is it. This is a picture. It's really therapy more than it is a mascot. But it's a picture of me and my brothers at my primary school at a fancy dress day. And I'll just tell you, my brother there, Ivor, he is the ace of clubs. My younger brother, Dan, he's a detective. And me, I'm Miss World.
You went as Miss World.
I went as Miss World. It's 1973, so they did look like this. And when I look at this now, I don't understand what happened.
OK, tonight the prize the teams will be competing for is this, a set of countdown golf clubs.
I just want to tell you, I'm very excited about that because my mum collects golf memorabilia. That's absolutely true. That's what she does. She doesn't play golf. She's just mental. And, this is one of my mum's golf books. It's called Beyond the Links. There is Sarah Fabian Baddiel. She wrote this. And each of these books...
Is this a real thing?
It's a real thing, completely real, absolutely true. She writes a little poem. I don't know if she quotes a little poem at the start of each book. Can I just read it for you now?
Sure.
It's, what brightens life throughout the year and makes all cloudlets disappear? What binds in friendships strong, sincere? It's golf.
Well, time now to go across to Dictionary Corner. David Baddiel, what have you got for us?
Well, I've got something quite interesting. It's this. It's called Bills of Mortality. Now, these are real things. They were published every week in London in the 17th century, and they are lists of what people died of that week in London. So I'm just going to take you through a couple of weeks of those. Here's a real one. The diseases and casualties this week. Abortive, 5. Aged, 43. Burnt in his bed by a candle at St Giles Cripplegate. 1. 2 people died of cough that week. It's quite hard to do that now, isn't it? I would say unless it's a really big wretch. And 3 people died because they were frightened. Killed by a fall from the belfry at Al Hallows the Great. 1. Terrible week for the church, wasn't it? 1 person died of lethargy. 1 person sat around so much that they died. 11 people died of rising of the lights. They were on the rig at a Metallica gig. I don't know how that happened. And 1 person died suddenly. Here's another week. 1 person died of sore leg. Really, that's hard to do. It's a bad week for St Giles Cripplegate again. It was scalded in a brewer's mash at St Giles Cripplegate. 3 people died of Quincy, which was a cop show that was on in the 80s. And 1 person died because they were distracted. Oi, mate, what is it? Here's the last one I could find of these. The diseases and casualties this week again. 10 died of cancer and wolf. It's a bad day, isn't it? When you've got cancer, then you get eaten by a wolf. I mean, really. 7 were overlaid. That's the way I'd like to go. And 46 were killed by several accidents. So they fell off the belfry, they burnt in their bed, they were eaten by a wolf. Finally, they fucking died. But my favourite in all of these lists, all I've seen, is the 1 person who managed to die of fucking piles. How is that possible? What an enormous pile came out of his arse and suffocated him. So there you are, Bills of Mortality, this week's Dictionary Corner.
I love it. David Baddiel, everyone. How many letters, David?
It is
how many letters?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, you're going to be good in the numbers round, aren't you? John, how many letters?
9.
It's exciting. Sean?
I've got a 6, Jimmy.
6, OK. Quite respectable. Trevor?
5.
OK, let's hear your 5.
Brute.
Brute. David, what's your 6?
Rubella. It's an illness.
It's brilliant, but it's got 2 L's and you could have got a 7.
Oh, bollocks. Funny enough, also has 2 L's. You'll know this is true, because I probably told you, but I was once voted, in 2006, the world's 6th sexiest Jew. I was. And I was very flattered till I discovered the number 5 slot had gone to Sir Alan Sugar. It's true. Number 5 slot went to Sir Alan Sugar. It was a UK poll. I don't think the UK public have heard of that many Jews. I think number 7 might have been Hitler.
OK, time to go across again to Dictionary Corner. David Baddiel, what have you got for us?
I wanted to try a little experiment, if that's possible, Jimmy. Now, like some comedians, I sometimes put jokes on Twitter. Here's a few examples of those. Here's Vladimir Putin at 14, which is obviously not the joke in itself, but I was moved to retweet that using the words Macaulay Stalin. Now, that got these numbers here. That's what I want to draw your attention. 146 retweets, 214 favourites. And I think if you're a comedian putting jokes on Twitter, these numbers operate as a kind of virtual laugh. Like, the bigger the number, the bigger the laugh, right? That's a kind of medium-sized laugh on Twitter. It got a kind of medium-sized laugh in the room. But let's see if we can do any better with this. This is a picture of Kim Jong-un. Again, not the joke in itself, but you may remember Kim Jong-un went missing a little while back. Do you remember that? And when he came back, I posted... So that's where Kim Jong-un went to the DFS sale to buy a miniature black leather sofa to wear on his head. And as you can see, that got 270 retweets, 237 favourites, a slightly bigger laugh on Twitter, a slightly bigger laugh in the room. I mean, I should say that most of these jokes are not about dictators. That's just a weird coincidence. Most of them are just at my own expense. For example, this one, this is just a picture of me with Alan Yentop, Salman Rushdie and Alexei Sayle at a book launch. It hardly needs a caption, but I gave it one. It was the Who Can Look Most Like a Semitic Proclaimers competition. Eventually came down to two very strong teams. You can see the teams squaring up to each other there. That got 221 retweets, 434 favourites, so we're building the laugh as we go. So the one that I did of these kind of jokes that got the most retweets and the most favourites I've ever got on Twitter was a couple of years ago now. It was when Andy Murray won Wimbledon. There was this picture of Andy Murray the first time when he won Wimbledon with the respective party leaders at the time. And I just posted that I thought Andy was saying, no, really, you're all 2,090 retweets, 821 favourites. The lesson there, really, Jimmy, is keep it simple.
David Baddiel, everyone.